So, there's a new AI model on the scene called Chroma 4B, and it's making a claim that is so bold, it's really turning some heads. You see, its creators, FlashLabs, aren't just calling it another text-to-speech tool. Oh no, they're calling it something way more ambitious.
That's right, a virtual human. The goal here isn't just to spit out some speech. The idea is to create a model that actually listens to your raw audio, understands not just the content but the style, and then responds in your own personalized voice, and get this, all in real time. The promise here is just huge.
All right, so what's the big deal here? What problem is this virtual human even trying to solve? Well, it's taking a swing at one of the oldest problems in AI voices, making it actually sound like a person, like you, and not just another generic robot.
And this really lays it all out, right? On one side, you've got the old way of doing things, that generic, kind of robotic sound we all know, where your own personal voice just gets lost in the machine. But on the other side, you have Chroma's big goal, high-fidelity voice cloning. The idea is to keep your personal voice identity intact and do it super fast with just a tiny little audio clip.
Okay, so that's the what. Now for the how. How in the world does it claim to pull this off? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the architecture, see what's making this thing tick.
You know, from a bird's eye view, the process is actually pretty straightforward. Think of it like a four-step assembly line. First, your audio goes into the reasoner, which basically listens and figures out what was said and how it sounded. Then it's passed to the backbone, which starts predicting the basic sound codes. After that, the decoder comes in to add all the fine details, the little nuances. And finally, the codec takes all that digital info and turns it back into the voice you can actually hear.
And here's where we get a bit more technical. You can see the actual models they're using to power each part of that assembly line. The reasoner, that's running on Alibaba's QN model. And the backbone and decoder, those are both built on the very popular Llama 3. So you can see the strategy here, right? They're basically grabbing these super powerful existing models and stitching them together, hoping to get some really high-quality results.
Of course, a fancy architecture and big promises are great on paper. But how does it actually perform in the real world? That's what really matters. So let's follow along with a reviewer who actually installed this thing and took it for a spin. And right out of the gate, we hit a pretty big snag. Let me tell you, running this model is not for the faint of heart, or for anyone with a modest computer. Just look at that number. It chewed up over 23 gigabytes of VRAM. That means you need an absolutely beastly GPU just to get this thing to wake up.
So, to really test the cloning, the reviewer fed it a sample of his own voice. This sentence was meant to be the blueprint, you know? It has a specific tone, a certain rhythm. The whole point was to see if the AI could really listen, understand, and capture the essence of that voice.
All right, blueprint captured. Now for the test. The reviewer gave the model a super simple task. Answer the question, please tell me how to make a taco, but do it in his cloned voice. It's a really simple, clean test, right? It checks two things at once. Can it generate the right information, and can it do it in the right voice?
So after all that setup, the beefy hardware, the complex architecture, we're finally at the moment of truth. Did this thing actually deliver on that virtual human promise? Let's find out.
And this is it. This is the big question, isn't it? After everything, did Chroma 4B actually manage to clone the reviewer's voice and use it to answer the question about tacos?
Well, on one hand, the answer it gave was spot on. It correctly listed all the ingredients you'd need for a taco, a perfectly coherent, logical response. So the text generation part? Flawless. But what about the voice? Yeah, about that voice. It kind of fell flat. The reviewer's reaction was immediate, and you could tell he was pretty disappointed. The words were right, but the sound? It just wasn't a perfect clone of his voice.
And when you dig into his final verdict, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but ultimately pretty underwhelming. He said, it tried. He could hear very deep hints of his own voice in there. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't as good as other models he's seen. So not a total failure for sure, but definitely not the game changer it was made out to be.
So, where does that leave us? You've got this model with a massive claim, a virtual human, that doesn't quite stick the landing. What can we take away from all this?
I think the general feeling is that this was a really good effort. It's an ambitious idea, and it's built on some really solid tech. But the thing is, the world of open source AI moves at lightning speed. What would have been absolutely mind-blowing last year is now just, okay. The goalposts have moved, and the standard is just so much higher now. And this final thought from the reviewer really nails it. He basically says, look, we've come so far so fast. Our expectations for quality are through the roof now, mostly because there are already other free open source models out there that can do a much better job at cloning. The bar has just been raised, plain and simple.
So in the end, Chroma 4B is a super interesting case study. It's a perfect reminder of just how fast this field is moving. It shot for the moon, and even though it didn't quite get there, it really makes you wonder, if this isn't the virtual human we were promised, what will a truly human AI voice actually sound like, and how long until we get to hear it?